with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, November 16th, 2021. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, infrastructure bill signed. We will tell you what is in and not in it. Meanwhile, House Democrats look to vote on the Build Back Better on Thursday, seemingly because there's not as much concerns about the CBO score, at least in the House. Europe to tighten vaccination rules as the fourth wave hits. And New York City okays boosters for everybody over 18. Meanwhile, the CYA tour continues. Manchin and Pompeo supposedly contemplated the 25th Amendment after January 6th. Speaking of January 6th, Steve Bannon does a little perp walk. The question is Mark Meadows next? Religious groups attack the non-discrimination provision in the Build Back Better universal pre-K and daycare plan, just like Jesus would. Closing arguments in the Rittenhouse case. John Deere and striking workers reached their third tentative deal. We'll see if rank and file okay it. Meanwhile, Kellogg's sues its own workers. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is a Tuesday. And as always, Emma Vigeland is here. Hello, Emma.
Hello. Happy Day of Twos to you.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. That's, yep. It's just a matter of time before we went into the Old English.
I didn't even commit there. If you really want me to commit, I'll commit.
Let's hold off on that.
Fun half?
Maybe we'll give it a little time.
Yeah. Maybe in just a bajillion
Committing
years.
to the Old English really sort of feels like a third-year thing. I would.
All right. It was written into my contract that I'm only allowed to do those voices at a certain period of time. I was trying to get around that.
The good news is that in the first quarter of 2022, Emma is scheduled to come in complete Ren Fair garb, right? Is that right?
Yeah, we may have. I'm not as into that part. I don't like dressing up.
Okay. Not
really for me.
Okay. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Interesting, and we're going to get to this a little bit more, but just going to got some rundowns of some news today. But they seem in the House that they're going to vote on Thursday on the Build Back Better bill. This is not going to be the final bill because it's got to go to the Senate, et cetera, et cetera. But they're not anticipating the CBO scores to come out until Friday, maybe late Thursday. But there seems to be amongst members of the House, and maybe that's just a function of the fact that there's going to be this big tax cut for wealthy people because of the salt deal, like that all those people who are sort of worried about the CBO score, less worried when it's actually, money that's going to be going to
I'm
rich
not
people.
worried about the House centrists, corporatists. It's Manchin.
It's Manchin, and of course, it will move from the CBO to inflation, although there is, and we'll talk about that in a moment too. Well, let's just go into it now. I don't care. Hey,
Yeah.
what am I?
Rock on.
Who's constraining me from doing this? I got no boss. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, and
Except for right now, I can't find the story that I had so meticulously. I'm talking about there's religious, as you know, in the Build Back Better bill,
yes.
there is a universal pre-K and daycare. And of course, I can't find this freaking document. That's fantastic. And there is a provision in the way that there is in every federal program, that we will not pay or subsidize educational institutions that discriminate against people. Mm-hmm. And apparently this is a problem for religious organizations who want to get in on these federal funds. Now, I can tell you what happened in New York in terms of the UPK, and I would imagine it's more or less going to be the same thing on a federal program, which is that a lot of these programs, there were two things that happened in New York City. There were kindergartens added, or I should say, this is universal preschool. Oh, yeah, pre-K. So there were pre-Ks that were added to some existing elementary schools. So we're going to add a program for 4-year-olds. And they actually were built from scratch. And then there were other places where they already existed. My son was going to a co-op where we got a pretty good deal because you work part of the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty Brooklyn-y. But it happens everywhere. Everybody, you got co-ops all over the place.
Saul working?
No, Saul did not have to work. The parents did.
Sam, pro-child labor.
But once the UPK kicked in, what happened was that they applied to qualify. So, and there was a certain, basically dollar amount that they had to, and they basically were under that limit. And they were already qualified, essentially, for this program. In other words, with the hours or whatever the stipulations were. And it was picked up it became part of the city's UPK program. And I imagine that's what's going to happen here, except for there are some religious organizations that have UPK, preschools at churches. I would imagine at temples, and I would imagine at mosques. Some around the country will have preschool programs. And there apparently are religious organizations whose child care programs, and this is according to the New York Times, whose child care programs are currently exempt from the federal laws that mandate that all providers comply with federal non-discrimination statutes. But even though they're exempt from these laws, just broadly speaking, it means that they are ineligible to receive federal funding. Oh. And so some of the faith groups,
including the Catholic Church, the leaders of the Catholic Church, and one of the country's largest Orthodox Jewish groups, they want the bill rewritten, although that's not going to happen, I guess, now that it's been signed.
No. This is the Build Back Better.
Excuse me. Yeah.
And they want the bill rewritten to say that it's okay for you to discriminate against, let's say, gay people. Yeah. I mean, I guess theoretically, I don't know if any of these programs continue to do things like, well, we don't want to mix any races. I mean, this is really the story in many respects, how we got abortion as to be such a primary driver of our politics. Because I think it was Bob Jones University during the Carter years, the Carter's IRS was going to remove its tax exempt status because they were incredibly discriminatory. I think they were either completely segregated or said that they wouldn't allow men and women to date if they weren't the same race.
Yeah.
And the right wing understood, and certainly, all the people around there, like Richard Viguerie, I think it was, understood that that's going to be a really hard thing to motivate people on. Like, we need to have miscegenation and still get tax exempt. Maybe abortion might do it. And that's where we are today. Anyways, so this bill would bar federal funds from going to programs that refuse to hire a gay employee or gave preference to applicants of their faith or failed to renovate their facilities to accommodate disabled students. And it's just sort of amazing. So these groups are arguing that their rules would force them to choose between participating in the child care initiative and continuing to teach religious content, convene all boys or all girls programs, or give preferences in hiring to admissions to people of their religion. Well, there is a solution for this. Just keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
And not participate in the federal largesse.
You don't need to get the federal money, or you can accommodate all of these students. That's really kind of it.
Both.
Yeah,
both.
We want it, but we want them sweet money, please.
Yeah.
That's it.
Now, who would be craven enough to listen to such a plea? According to the New York Times, their efforts, speaking of these faith organizations that have appealed to the worst angels, I guess one could say, of the Biden administration, their efforts appear to have gained some traction in the Senate, where Joe Manchin, the third of West Virginia, a key Democratic swing vote on the social policy bill, has privately told Democrats he wants to ensure that religious programs can fully participate in the child care initiative. Mm-hmm. It's just...
You know what, they can. And there will be a lot of churches that will accommodate this as well. Maybe in area like non-denominational churches or more lefty churches or more lefty synagogues, they're going to accommodate this. But the ones that don't are going to be the loudest.
And it's not even they don't even have to be lefty synagogues or lefty churches. They just have to be non-fundamentalists who don't believe that whatever Bible they're going by was written by. In many instances, they're just sort of like, I don't know. They're doing a little bit of improv on those things and extrapolating.
Where are the mosques on this, by the way?
Lines.
The mosques should do like a kind of some subterfuge here and get involved in this so that maybe you spook Joe Manchin. He backs away from this.
Civil rights groups have pushed back hard at the efforts to remove the non-discrimination provision, saying that any institution that wants to receive federal funds must submit to such laws. Who do they want to shut out? Is it the lesbian mom you want to shut out, said Liz King, director of the Education Equity Program at the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights? Is it the children with autism you want to shut out? Since at least 1964, the law and basic principle has been that federal funds cannot be used to discriminate. No one should have to subsidize their own discrimination. Frankly, I'd like to see us pull their tax exempt status too. How's that?
Yeah, let's put that on the table.
But we're not quite there yet. Got a couple of sponsors today on the program. I think we mentioned this on the yesterday, at least. September broke a record for the number of people who quit their jobs. And it's a function of people basically saying, I don't like this employer, or I've saved up some money, or a lot of people have gone into early retirement. There are apparently over 10 million job openings, but only 7.6 million unemployed job seekers. Employers are having to go above and beyond to entice people to work for them, and that's good. It's about time that you're going to start to see wages go up a little bit. But if you are one of those people who are hiring, you want to try and find good people, Give yourself an opportunity to present as to why they should come work for you. And a great way to do that is ZipRecruiter. Right now, you can try for free at ZipRecruiter.com/majority. ZipRecruiter uses powerful technology to find and match the right candidates up with your job. Then it proactively presents these candidates to you. You can easily review these recommended candidates and invite your top choices to apply for your job. And when you invite someone to apply for your job, start to realize that maybe you're a decent employer. It encourages them to apply faster. ZipRecruiter is the #1 rated hiring site in the U.S. based on G2 ratings. I don't know what G2 ratings are, frankly, but I do know that I use ZipRecruiter to find Brendan, and in some way, sort of like Bradley, because I found Bradley through Brendan.
There you go.
Brendan was like literally like if you designed in a test tube the perfect candidate, and it was because ZipRecruiter went out and found him. ZipRecruiter's technology is so effective that 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Now you can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/majority. That's ZipRecruiter.com/majority, MAJORITY. ZipRecruiter, it's the smartest way to hire. Check it out. Also, our other sponsor today, longtime listener of the program, fan of the show, a guy who's had years of experience in the solar industry. He saw what was happening in that business, saw some of it could be a little bit predatory, saw that homeowners didn't always know what kind of equipment they needed, didn't know what kind of incentives, tax breaks were available, didn't know how to sort of contract, oversee the whole process. And thus, mysolarnerd.com was born. Wow. And really just say, wow.
I'm trying to.
Well, I mean, actually, it is, and in some respects, it's a real, it seems like, how is there not more of more solar nerds out there already? As you probably know, it's now possible to retrofit a home with solar panels for no money down. Most homeowners that switch over to solar see significant savings starting in their first year. And this is possible due to the solar investor tax credit, which was extended in the COVID relief bill. My Solar Nerd's mission is simple. It helps you. They help you find the best solar program for your home, and they make the transition as easy and smooth as possible. And how they do it, they analyze your usage, they find the best equipment for your needs, they determine the incentives and financing that you might qualify for, and then they project manage the process between you and the installers. They obtain the permits, et cetera, et cetera. Like I say, these tax credits were extended. There's a 26% tax credit. It drops down to 22% at the end of next year. And some markets that are prone for outages, you may get qualified for off-grid backup solutions. Majority Report listeners are going to get a $200 gift card upon installation of their solar system. Go to mysolarnerd.com, fill out the inquiry form now. Make sure you select the Majority Report listeners so so Danny knows we sent you. And check it out. mysolarnerd.com. Sort of the sort of like a solar, like doula or navigator.
Yeah.
And make sure you put in the you heard from the Majority Report so that when you're done with this, you get a $200 gift card. So there's a bit of a CYA going on. It's interesting just to see who's trying to like sort of like start their career in the post-Trump era without Donald Trump. And now, this moment in particular is really the only opportunity you have if you're trying to, set up, because we know that the day after the midterms, Donald Trump is going to come out hard. He may come out before then.
Right.
But I think he realized, like when we saw with Youngkin, that he probably understands better to lay low, do some groundwork, whatever. And then on the day after the midterm election, everything's going to be about him again. So enjoy the next year of not Trump insanity.
And it gives certain people the opportunity to reclaim their reputations in the eyes of a press that's quite eager to rehabilitate certain Republicans.
Exactly.
I mean, they did it with Bush. Thought they were going to do it with Trump officials?
Now,
please.
Here's Chris Christie on Fox and Friends. And be clear, understand here what happens with a guy like Chris Christie, right? They're doing a CNN special
mini-series on his like post-Trump life.
How the F? Like the backstory of that, like if somebody did some investigation, like of all the freaking politicians, all the former governors, who the F cares about Chris Christie?
Well, okay.
He almost died from COVID is the angle they're playing up because he helped Trump prepare for the debates. So that's like a news peg, I guess.
I don't know why that's newsworthy. I mean, it's basically because he already is known to be media savvy. He is an ABC contributor, and I'm sure they have some crossover friends with CNN. And so, like, look, charismatic, tough Jersey guy.
Too.
I mean, maybe he's getting a show, but the whole point is like he's in the area. He's got friends.
I wouldn't be surprised too if they produced it and then sold it to CNN. It's one of those jobbies. But he's got to go over to Fox now. He's going to hit all the bases, and he'll do his Fox thing, his CNN thing, and then at one point he'll head over to MSNBC, and I think Scarborough will probably, I don't know, like just literally lick his entire body or something like that.
Yeah.
But here is Chris Christie joining Steve Doocy to promote his new book, Republican Rescue, Saving the Party from Truth Deniers, Conspiracy Theorists.
So you say saving the party from truth deniers, conspiracy theorists, and then Joe Biden. Who are the truth deniers and the conspiracy theorists?
Well, I go through in the middle of the book things like QAnon and Pizzagate and birtherism. They were all conspiracy theories and things that were just on.
And maybe Fox. You know what's amazing about this is, let's just take, for instance, and I haven't read the book. All I know is the way that Chris Christie is presenting it. Birtherism. Let's just sit with this for a moment. Who was in this country the biggest name associated with birtherism?
Well, that would be Donald Trump.
Yes. Now, does anybody remember who Chris Christie essentially, literally, took his sword and got down on one knee and said, "I am yours, sir.
Get back in the plane. You can go now.
Go get me my hamburger." I mean, how does this guy have the gall to talk about birtherism when he literally carried birtherism's luggage?
Yeah. He has plausible deniability, even though it's not true, about something like QAnon, right? Because that came after Trump. But birtherism came before and was promulgated aggressively by the candidate that he staked his political fortunes on and endorsed very early on.
Well, speaking of political fortunes, when I hear Chris Christie say he has a problem with conspiracy theorists, I wonder, is the Fort Lee lane closure thing, is that a conspiracy?
Right.
There was some conspiracizing behind the scenes there, yeah. Inspiring.
All right, let's continue to see Doocy react to this. It's interesting to me, too, that they paired him up with Doocy as opposed to, what's his face? But, yeah, kill me. Go ahead.
Conspiracy theorists.
Well, I go through in the middle of the book things like QAnon and Pizzagate and birtherism. They were all conspiracy theories and things that were just untrue that take our party off course, Steve. We don't have to talk about that stuff. We should be talking about Joe Biden and 6% inflation, Joe Biden and the way he disgraced us in Afghanistan, Joe Biden and the way we're seeing our country being embarrassed around the world, and our people at home being taught things in our schools that make us not proud to be Americans. If Republicans talk about that, we're going to win the House and the Senate and then win the White House in 24. We talk about all this other garbage, people are going to think we're not fit to serve.
I mean, he's not wrong about that, but
I frankly, you just look at the gerrymandering, and the Republicans have already picked up 5 seats in the House. So, Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that he's correct, frankly. I mean, they've done, to the extent that they've done well, it's been on those conspiracy theories. It's another conspiracy theory that they're teaching critical race theory in the schools.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a story I had today. I didn't go through it, but the next thing that they are going to go after is emotional health in schools. So it's not just about the idea that it's really been about like teaching Americans not to feel good about themselves in these schools is really has to do more with they don't like the idea of public schools.
Yeah.
That's what's going on there. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but let's go into the infrastructure bills just so that people know what's in it. Half of the money in this $1 trillion bill was already earmarked to this stuff.
$1 trillion was over 10 years, right? So it's really more like $100 billion over or every year, and most of that is going to be from. It's actually $550 billion in new funds. Sorry, but half from old money that was sitting around.
$650 billion of the bill's spending would have been allocated for existing transportation and highway programs under previously planned appropriations. In other words, there's $550 billion of new money here. Nevertheless, you have $73 billion for the electricity grid that involves upgrades to the country's power system that will hopefully help the grid carry renewable energy when we decide that we think it's important to have renewable energy. I guess it's nice to have the capacity for
any day now.
$66 billion for rail in this country, which involves a significant investment in Amtrak. That's according to the New York Times. There is also, and are you going to see a lot of improvements? Probably not necessarily. You're just going to see that they're finally going to deal with all this backlog of maintenance that they hadn't been doing. So there won't be any sort of like serious, hopefully, accidents based upon stuff that was sort of punted.
And a lot of this is going towards the Boston to DC corridor, right? So there's going to be some expansion, but not what I would, see, or what I would prefer.
Well, that's they're going to put it into where the most traffic is. But the bottom line is that we need high-speed rail in this country. We need, you could spend 10 times this in terms of like giving us a genuine, sort of substitute to car culture. Even electric cars are not going to be a solution to the problems that we have.
And air travel. Like, you want to go to like North Carolina from New York City, it's like, I don't know, the time difference. Whereas if you could just have a high-speed rail, which is something like, you look at some place like China, and if we're going to get a Cold War going, maybe we should start competing over infrastructure, because they are absolutely cleaning our clocks when it comes to this sort of stuff.
Absolutely. And frankly, you got ships that are backed up in the off of the major ports in California. Well, maybe if you didn't need to have trucks, we lack the truck drivers because the pay is so garbage, and you've got containers backed up in the ports. If we had a decent train system in this country to take that stuff up into the last mile, it'd be a very different situation.
Yeah, it's all good for the Port of LA to say, we're looking at expanding our rail capacity. Like, well, how long is that going to take?
Yep. $65 billion for broadband. This should provide high-speed internet access to hard-to-reach populations, including Native American communities. That's good. $47 billion for climate resiliency. In other words, we've created the problem, and now we're going to create the profit from creating the problem. This is the pure neoliberal solution here.
And do nothing to actually alleviate the problem in this particular bill. Well,
we're just going to mitigate. We're going to
punt that to
monetize the rot.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We'll punt that to Build Back Better and actually hope the mansion does the work for us and kills it entirely.
Right. New funding aimed at combating wildfires and preparing coastal regions for more frequent hurricanes and flooding. So
it's inevitable, and we're not going to do anything about it.
$21 billion for environmental projects. This is $2 billion a year over 10 years. We spend $770 billion a year on our military. That doesn't even include things like the VA. $15 billion for removing lead service lines. We need closer to $45 billion to get rid of all the lead in all our pipes. And,
apparently it's $6 billion to replace every lead pipe in the country.
$6 billion?
Sorry, $60 billion.
$60 billion,
yeah.
Exactly.
My own handwriting is terrible. I can't read it.
I'm sorry, we need $45 billion more.
Yeah.
And, but we got to start. Some folks just get a little more lead than others.
And that's some people that won't be poisoned with lead.
Yep. $7.5 billion for electric vehicles, which will add to charging stations nationwide, and $2 billion for expanding transportation projects in rural areas. God knows what that means.
And a lot of the discretion on, say, highway projects, New York Times wrote up a piece about this as well, falls pretty much on the states to decide how they're going to expand certain highways in certain areas. And likely, you're going to see in red states and in blue states too, let's not let them off the hook, probably some more racist infrastructure or dividing lines, because there's going to be some of that money has transportation oversight on the federal level, but the majority of it does not.
And the point is, it's all well and good to fix some potholes and some roads and whatnot, but the bottom line is we need more public transport. We need to have light rail. We need to have more buses, electric buses. Some of these places will do that. Other places will just, build out their roads.
Build another lane of highways.
So that's where we are. This glorified highway bill. There's some provisions in it that are commendable, but completely insufficient for what the challenges we face going forward. This is. You look at this stuff as if it's it's being championed as if it's some great achievement, and it really makes you think like this country's got a little bit of a problem. I don't know if people have picked up on that.
Yeah, hopefully they have. Biden and Kamala Harris at the press conference yesterday, what was she saying? You are equal parts believer and builder.
She said that to him?
Yeah.
Oy.
Yikes.
I'm glad I missed that.
I know, it's tough.
Equal parts believer and builder.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something
Joe
you would
the
say,
Builder.
like, if you were married for
can't.
35 years and it's like your anniversary.
Yeah, and because we are all better off. And it's just like when we get to the point where there's nothing really to talk about for politicians, they just get poetic like that.
Yeah,
Very sweet.
it's like a wine mom sign in her kitchen, right? It's right next to it's wine o'clock. It's your equal parts builder and believer, Judy. You can do it.
Judy.
I don't know. Not thinking of, yeah, Judy.
Let's talk about this story. It was reported by the New York Times yesterday. Apparently, in 2019, the military, in March of 2019, there was an attack that took place in Syria against the Islamic State, ostensibly. But it turns out that it was actually against 80 women and children. This is, it took place in a town called Baghouz. There was a U.S. military drone that was circling over that town. It saw only a large crowd of women and children huddled against the riverbank. And then suddenly an American F-15E attack jet dropped a 500-pound bomb on the crowd. Once the smoke cleared, a few people stumbled away in search of cover. Then a jet tracking them dropped one 2,000-pound bomb. Oh. Then another, killing most of the survivors. This happened in March of 2019, as reported by the New York Times. The U.S. military's busy Combined Air Operations Center at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Uniformed personnel watching the live drone footage looked on in stunned disbelief. This is according to one officer who was there. Who dropped that? A confused analyst typed on a secure chat system. Another responded, we just dropped on 50 women and children. An initial battle damage assessment quickly found that the number of dead was actually about 70. The strike was one of the largest civilian casualty incidents of the war against the Islamic State, but it has never been publicly acknowledged by the U.S. military. Let me just say what's problematic with that sentence. It really should be the strike was one of the largest civilian casualty incidents that we know of in this war. Just so happened you've got whistleblowers in this instance, and 2 years later, 2.5 years later, the New York Times, through reporting, is able to report on it. They go on. It has never been publicly acknowledged by the U.S. military. The details reported here for the first time show that the death toll was almost immediately apparent to military officials. A legal officer flagged the strike as a possible war crime that required an investigation, but at nearly every step, the military made moves that concealed the catastrophic strike.
So, I mean,
Lawless.
The coalition forces, seemingly at the United States' direction, also bulldozed the site in order to cover up the evidence. So this isn't slipping through the cracks. If there's anybody left watching this who doesn't believe fully that, you know, this is what the United States military does. No, there was a really concerted effort to cover it up with destroying evidence and bulldozing the blast site.
In fact, leadership just seemed so set on burying this, no one wanted anything to do with it, said Gene Tate, an evaluator who worked on the case for the Inspector General's office and agreed to discuss aspects that were not classified. Tate is a former Navy officer who had worked for years as a civilian analyst with the Defense Intelligence Agency before moving to the Inspector General's office. He criticized the lack of action and was awarded he was eventually forced out of his job.
Got it.
The Times found that the bombing had been called in by a classified American Special Ops Unit, Task Force 9, which was in charge of ground operations in Syria. I mean, who the F knows? Like, first off, like, how is it? I mean, I guess we could check back in on this in a couple of months. See if anybody in Congress is going to have any type of investigation. But how is it that there are not people who are being court-martialed for this? In the minutes after the strike, an alarmed Air Force intelligence officer in the operations center called over an Air Force lawyer in charge of determining the legality of strikes. The lawyer ordered the F-15 squadron and the drone crew to preserve all video and other evidence, according to documents obtained by the Times. He went upstairs and reported the strike to his chain of command, saying it was a possible violation of the law of armed conflict, a war crime. And regulations required thorough independent investigation. That never happened. Apparently this week, after the Times sent its findings to the U.S. Central Command. So this week, 2.5 years later, the command acknowledged the strikes for the first time, saying 80 people were killed, but the airstrikes were justified.
Well, because it only matters what your intent is, right? For every other crime in the world, and if the United States is choosing to retaliate against a nation or offensively invade them, the results or what, I mean, like, it doesn't, their intent doesn't matter. But if the United States didn't intend to kill civilians, wash your hands of it.
I mean, do we know that
and we don't even
intend?
know that, right?
I mean, you had the eyes, essentially, of the military, the drone there, clearly understood that these people were non-combatants, clearly understood that they were women and children. I mean, for all we know, some guy in Task Force 9, maybe they had committed crimes against these people. Maybe they had some other type of relationship with these people. And they just wanted to take them out.
Yeah.
Maybe they thought like, oh, these are the wives of people that we know are fighters or might be, and we're going to kill them as retaliation. I mean, we don't know what the intent was.
We don't know because they're basically vaguely saying, I mean, they initially said that they killed, I think, 4?
It said the bombs killed 16 fighters and 4 civilians.
4 civilians, right.
As for the other 60 people killed, it was not clear that they were civilians, according to this report. In part because women and children in the Islamic State sometimes took up arms.
So this was a part of the Trump administration's all-out blitz against ISIS. Not to say that these cover-ups and civilian deaths aren't entirely bipartisan, but just to contextualize it, I mean, he was trying to run on a scorched earth campaign against ISIS and bragged about defeating them. This is naturally what happens in those efforts.
And I don't know what you can make from this, but the Air Force lawyer is the one who went up and said, we could have a war crime here. Believed he had witnessed, this guy's named Dean W. Corsack. He believed he had witnessed a possible war crime and repeatedly pressed his leadership and Air Force criminal investigators to act. When they did not, he alerted the Defense Department's independent inspector general 2 years after the strike, seeing no evidence that the IG was taking any action. Colonel Corsack emailed the Senate Armed Services Committee. Now, I don't know. I don't have any inkling, and maybe it's delusional to think that it made a difference to him who was in charge of that committee. Maybe it's just coincidence that he waited until the committee was led by Democrats to decide he'd had enough and wanted a different administration. As far as I can tell, that committee's hadn't done anything, although I don't know how the Times got this information. Colonel Corsack emailed the Senate Armed Services Committee telling its staff that he had top secret material to discuss and adding, I'm putting myself at great risk of military retaliation for sending this. Senior U.S. military officials intentionally and systemically circumvented the deliberate strike process, he wrote in the email, which was obtained by the Times. Much of the material was classified. He would need to be discussed through secure communications, he said. He wrote that a unit had intentionally entered false strike log entries, clearly seeking to cover up the incidents. Calling the classified death toll shockingly high, he said the military did not follow its own requirements to report and investigate the strike. He apparently did not respond to requests for comment from this story. I mean, look, I can tell you, reading through this, you get 3 types of information when you're a reporter. You get off the record background. You get on the record background, but anonymous. And then you get on the record and where you can use their name. I mean, this story does not exist except for leaks that are coming from the Senate Armed Services Committee. And it's unclear whether that's because there are politicians who feel like we can't do anything with this, but have authorized their staff to leak it to the press to build some type of blowback, or we may see, I would imagine, you're going to see some senator today or the next day, maybe already, saying, I'm disturbed about what I've written, seen in this article. We need to hold hearings. This is the way, they do this. But horrible.
I mean, and again, this is, if we're only getting this information because it was provided to the Armed Services Committee and somebody's trying to spur something, there are hundreds, I would imagine, or countless strikes and civilian death undercounts in these forever wars that we don't know about. And let alone the stuff that just doesn't get reported, say with our troop presence in Somalia or in other parts of Africa, which there's a huge black hole in reporting on what we even do there. I mean, and let alone the clandestine national security agency efforts, or whatever the case may be, what the CIA is doing. We'll never know the true death toll. But
yeah, these are lawless cowboys that kill people with, really expensive equipment around the world and get away with it.
Get away with it. And also have the sort of the added benefit from their perspective of creating more enemies, which gives them more work. Total self-licking ice cream cone. Mm-hmm. Haven't had the opportunity to say that in a while.
Oh, they hate us because of our freedom, so.
Maybe we'll get to this story about the CDC interference. I mean, people know, broadly speaking, that Trump interfered in the CDC, but there needs to be more aggressive. I mean, this is all coming out of a House congressional committee. They've released emails and documents that show how the Trump administration quashed their own CDC in trying to cover up. I mean, I don't know how you think you cover up a pandemic, but they were like, let's not have any war. I don't even know. I don't even know what the mentality. These people are lunatics, and
I know the mentality. The pandemic is only important based on how it reflects upon us. That's why they change. I mean, some of the reporting that came out, the leaked emails that came out of this, they changed testing requirements initially at the objection of, I think, Deborah Birx and other scientists on there saying, don't test asymptomatic people because they didn't want high testing numbers.
Yes. And I was about to say, but that could lead to a pandemic where you have almost 750,000 people, or more than 750,000 people die. And how could they possibly escape any type of responsibility for that? And then I just realized, oh God, it's Tuesday and it's November 16th, and I'm living in
and it's the Republicans, and they'll always find a way to blame somebody else. Yeah.
On some level, it worked. The idea that you'd have a single sort of person who wouldn't hold Trump responsible. The idea that you still have people who are so much of the anti-vax stuff, so much of the problems that we have with public health policy now are a function of what was clearly the CDC trying to do one thing and then having to sort of twist themselves in pretzels because they were, getting quashed by the Trump administration. And so therefore, that's why you've got all these different testing directives. It's why you don't have a quality testing regime. I mean, it's all these things. I mean, and it is amazing.
And then you could just turn around and blame the CDC and blame Fauci and blame the scientists. Again, not saying anybody's, fully blameless in this, but that's the easy way the Republicans can squirm out of this.
Right, but their criticism of them is that they took it somehow too seriously,
yeah.
Right? And but which obscures the reality, which is that they were trying to manage the image of the pandemic the entire time.
But the obscuring is,
election.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you need to do, though. That first initial step is easy enough for them.
And we should say, that how these hearings are not, the Democrats somehow are failing to make this the show trials that it should be. That's my feeling about it. I mean, I suppose you could say there's no media to cover it, but I'm sorry. I mean, I should be getting emails from somebody somewhere about this on a regular basis. Right? We should be fed guests on a daily basis. We wouldn't take them, but I'm saying like we should be.
Yeah, we should be going after the American government's response the same way we would be after negligent companies where the CEOs made some kind of call. Like
It's just like the Democrats just don't do politics that well.
Or in the same way that the Republicans were trying to go after China.
Or Benghazi.
Benghazi. But just specifically to related to the pandemic, they were trying to say, oh, it's a Chinese plot. And there's a significant portion of the country that believes that. And they were able to deflect enough blame.
Yep.
But Democrats can never focus blame.
We got to take a break and head into the fun half. Folks, it's just a reminder for you. Majority Live or MajorityReportLive.com. Either one. Get your tickets. We need to book a guest on Friday. Right? We'll talk about that afterwards. But we're going to have... we're going to slowly start to trickle out who's going to be at the show. But I can tell you this right now. I'll tell you this right now. Emma Vigeland's going to be there.
Yeah.
Matt Leck. Bradley Alsop. Who else?
Boston Celtics point guard Dennis Johnson.
That would be awesome, actually. You know, I mean, I think Larry Bird and Bill Walton have pretty good politics. I know Bill Walton.
There is a picture of Larry Bird.
I've seen that picture. Yeah, Eugene Debs' house.
Yeah. So that's where I'm going off of it.
It's amazing when you like Larry Bird doesn't look that big.
Oh yeah, that's a big boy.
And but
we should bring Kareem on just to give all the Celtics fans nightmares or flashbacks.
If we had Kareem on, my dad would become a fan of the show, I think.
Really?
He was a big Kareem guy growing up.
I mean, talk about good politics.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, maybe when we go to L.A. I'm not promising. Probably won't.
Spot.
We probably won't be flying him into Boston.
We should just promote it as if it's agreed upon, see if we can pressure him into doing it.
That's right. If enough people buy tickets right now, maybe Kareem comes. It's up to you.
Does he get a cut?
Would he get a cut?
No.
Sure. I'd give him a cut. I'd offer it. Of course. Of course I would. And hope he said, no. You guys keep it. All right.
I love the show so much, they'll do it for free.
Majority Report Live. Mr. Jabbar, if you are listening, you are welcome.
Big fan of your politics and the hook shots.
That's true. The hook shot, actually, I'm not such a big fan of. I was a huge Celtics fan, so that's not. I'm as excited about that. But the politics, I love. So if you're out there, though, and you do want to come to the show, you will get the VIP treatment. And if you want to be on the show, anytime.
I wonder what the VIP treatment means.
You can come drink a beer with us in the green room.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a beer in the green room, and you name your swag.
Name your CBO.
Yes, exactly. Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Majority Report Live, folks, January 16th. It is the, what are we calling that? The
Jan 16th?
Yeah,
January 16th.
3 p.m. in Boston. That is MLK weekend, essentially. I've extended it to a whole weekend. So Boston, great place for that on that weekend.
Way better.
Yeah. Don't forget, you can also support the show by becoming a member at jointhemajority.com. And folks, if you're one of those people who can't afford a membership, send us an email at majorityreporters@gmail.com. If you've sent it in the past and we didn't respond, send it again. Just put in the subject line, membership help. And we have a little patience and we will get back to you, I promise. And if you don't hear from us, do it again, because stuff falls through the cracks all the time. We get more emails than I can even begin to explain to you. And so send us an email. And if you can't afford the fun half, but you want access to it, do that and we will hook you up. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code MAJORITY, get 10% off. We're getting into the holiday season, folks. Great time for some Just Coffee, then frankly, that Sunset Lake CBD is also great. CBD is a great.
No.
CBD is a great gift too. Matt, what's happening in the Matt Leckian media universe?
Yeah, people go check out at patreon.com/Left Reckoning, the first Left Reckoning farm report with Aaron Kowalski from Nebraska. Kowalski talking about land use, the future of farming, how we can capture some carbon using farming and send it into the Gulf of Mexico, all that sort of stuff. So patreon.com/Left Reckoning. It was a fun conversation.
Nice.
And don't forget Nomi's show. Do we have Nomi? All right, well, we'll have her on in a second, but don't forget to check out her show, youtube.com/The Nomi Key Show on YouTube. You can also check it out on Rofkin.
Is it Rockfin?
Fin.
Rockfin.
Rofkin
sounds like a Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, or just an author that Sam likes. You pick up the old Arnold Rofkin.
Yeah, exactly. That does sound like a book I would have read like 20 years ago or something. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. Head into the fun half. See you there. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 eighths. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Ooh.
Rand Paul. I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up.
Ooh.
Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me...
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
We are back, and ladies and gentlemen, Nomi is here. Nomi, what's happening on your show?
Hello, guys, and gal, or however you want to be described. You don't have it in your box, so I don't know.
I'm not really a gal, but I'll be a gal.
All right, sounds good.
That makes sense.
So today on Rockfin, we do our TNS Live. We're going to be doing a live conversation with David Moore from Sludge to talk about the DNC. He's like the only person who can nerd out on this stuff with me. And people are always requesting it. And I don't like to do it too much because it's infuriating and I get really depressed after I talk DNC stuff. But he's going to pull back the curtain, talk about how little power we have in the DNC. But I've got some juicy info on the dynamics between the DNC and the Biden administration. You might be a little shocked. Yeah. But you're going to have to check it out. Rockfin.com/Nomiki.
Whoa.
You sure it's not Rofkin?
No, it's Rockfin.
All right. If you say so.
I've been corrected, trust me.
You keep saying Rofkin.
I keep saying Rofkin. Maybe that's because I heard it from you. You said Rofkin.
Probably. I got corrected a few times.
Anti-socialist on the IM says, hey there, I was wondering if you guys have any pre-show rituals before going live every day.
Sam realizing it's 12 and saying a swear
good
word.
Guy. Yeah, exactly. Shit. Fuck, how did it get so late?
Why am I drinking so early already?
Obviously, I do drugs before the show. It's been well documented.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't say that on air. But it's a joke. It's a joke.
That's wait. It's
not water.
I'm getting
I've
drunk.
joked about like that. I have never once been high on the show, but people like.
Oh, okay. Congratulations.
I think I've joked about it, and people took it seriously, like the militant vegan thing. Like I'm not a vegan, and I also have never been high on this program.
Now,
so soy sucks.
Now, pay attention to how Matt stays out of this
Not
conversation.
a vegan. My not a vegan and never been high on the show T-shirt is prompting a lot of questions already answered by my T-shirt.
You're overcompensating. You're overcompensating a little.
Comrade Cat, John Oliver did a segment on union busting last Sunday. It's a good thing he did it's a good thing. I mean, union busting is bad, but it was a good segment and good to show folks how it happens. Yeah, I did a interview with David Dayen on the old Peacock show about Whole Foods, I think it was, union busting. And who knows, someday that could show up in your feed by mistake. Emma, please stop using the word aloha negatively, aloha bros, when referring to Tulsi. It's a phrase that has deep meaning and is used all the time by Hawaiians, the people who live there. She's not overusing it. Hawaii is an 80% Democratic voting state, and she didn't run again because they are smart and she would have lost. I'm happy to go into further if you want to DM me at Ruggy Maui.
Okay, I'm sorry. I understand. I was just trying to make fun of her kind of usage of it as a way to deflect from her politics, but I understand the sensitivity.
Avedon. Oh, I finally broke down and got a smartphone so I can use the app. I just thought I'd say hi and still love you in the show. Oh, Avedon, long time listener and a guest poster at Atrios. Sam's upsetting. Oh, what? Sam's upsetting nipples. Biblical improv. Laugh my ass off. Okay. Kiki, I just heard the director of Monmouth University polling, Patrick Murray, on 538 and says he wants to stop doing horse race polling. Says he's open to suggestions on how to replace it. Seems like he would make a good guest.
That's fascinating. Maybe because they're always wrong.
Yeah, it may be one of those things. Let's take a break for a while on that. Left of the box, another great Canadian content creator is Bothered Boy. He posts videos daily on his YouTube channel, and he covers topics from all around the world. He is close to 5,000 subscribers. If he reaches that goal by the end of November, he'll donate $300 to charity. Let's make him pay. Leftists supporting leftists is how we win. Please go subscribe to Bothered Boy on YouTube. That's Bothered Boy on YouTube. Jenna from St. Louis, put me on the I quit one of my jobs in November list. A no more emotionally abusive boss for me. Yay.
Nice.
Stinky. Progressives got played again. That I assume is a reference to the Build Back Better job. Avalyn Garcias, how can I find a... Okay, that's not going to be read. GB83, Sam is Emma's solar nerd. Dim Tool, I bought a Tushy 3.0 today with the code majority as a Christmas present for my parents because remember, kids, it's never too early to start helping. You're okay, your parents, okay. Chicken Shit Cedar. Hey, Nomi, since Sam is being a chicken shit about running for Senate, can we get you to take his place?
No. I will not be running for U.S. Senate.
NorCal new romancer. I'm sure Shake Shack loves Chris Christie. Majority Report wardrobe coordinator calling anything related to Chris Christie a mini series is really a bridge too far. Surprised you didn't dive into Pizzagate. All right, that was good.
That's funny.
Cape May Pete, dust from lead-based paint causes 75 to 80% of lead poisoning cases. It's the paint, not the water.
Wait, can I add to that really quick? In New York, I don't know if you guys remember, so NYCHA Housing has a major problem with this. And there are actual lawmakers in charge of housing who don't think it's the paint, I think it's the water, even though it was on the front page of multiple papers for like 3 or 4 years. But there are these infants who just it's like the smallest little chip. If it gets in there, and obviously they're not, it's really hard to clear it out. It's a major issue. And there have been like hundreds of kids who've had developmental issues because of this. And our city is doing absolutely nothing to protect them or investigate.
And I mean, certainly what happened in Flint was a function of water that was treated improperly.
Absolutely.
And it began to corrode these old lead pipes. And that's where the source of lead came from. And I would imagine that in the context, not just of Flint, you can also get that type of thing from like old hot water heaters conceivably could create, some type of rust or buildup or hard, depending on, some areas where there's hard water and it's not treated in the proper manner, and then have the same corrosive effect on pipes. And that ends up being so.
I mean, to be clear, in the public housing, it's actually just the paint from the wall. It's like layers of paint.
Oh, right. Yes.
And so like if you have a kid or something and they bust into the wall, or you're just wear and tear of a house, if it's like, a corner and they bite it or it gets on the floor and they taste sweet. That's the other thing is the lead paint has like a candy-like taste.
Right.
And it's be so little and it has an effect. It's horrible.
When I had moved back down to the city from upstate in 2008, maybe it was, found a great deal on an apartment downtown, and moved in, or was about to move in, and we were moving our stuff down in like 5 or 6 days. And so I went down there, and I was looking around, and I was like, I wonder if we just get it lead tested, because Mila was a baby at that time. Guy came in, and they test it in a couple of different ways. They swab like the floor, because this had an old floor where you had big cracks and crevices in the floorboards, and you take a device that is basically like, I guess, sonar on some level. And what it does is it you put it on the wall, and it sends some type of like probably a radio wave. And how fast or to what extent it comes back tells you the content of the lead in the walls. The guy put it up there, and he says it goes up to 10. And he put it up there, and he's like, I don't see this very often. It was over the meter.
Wow.
And then he swabbed the floor, and there was lead dust in between the cracks in the floor. And I was like...
Were you able to get out of the deposit and the lease?
Well, I was like, what do we do? And he goes, if you could afford not to take this apartment, I wouldn't take it.
Wow.
And I went to the broker, and I said, A, you're letting us out of the lease. Mm-hmm. B, you're not going to rent this to anybody with a kid. You can't rent this to anybody with a kid. And that's right. She hemmed for a second, but I think like in retrospect, I found out that like I could have forced her to remediate, which is, an apartment in New York City is worth, millions of dollars. Who knows? But, would it cost the landlord like, probably $20,000 or $30,000 at that time.
Oh, you were buying?
No, we were renting.
Right.
But they would have to remediate it. And I mean, and he owns that apartment. It's worth millions of dollars over the course of however many, years. And so, we got out of it. But that, there's still a lot of places in New York.
Way more than you think.
Oh, I would imagine, I would imagine in Manhattan less and less, because a lot of these buildings have been rehabbed or something. Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Well, during my campaign for public advocate, I went and I visited a few of the mothers that had spoken out because their children, and I met the children, and they were, a few were like 3 years old, a few were like 7, and they couldn't focus, they couldn't pay attention to you, real developmental issues because of the lead paint. And they showed us where, we filmed it. They like pulled out they had like, in several instances, and this is in public, 1 in 8 New Yorkers lives in public housing. So this is important to keep in mind. And most public housing is female, like led homes. So it's very, it's crazy. Like they would have 2 stoves because one broke, and then they like out of their own pocket had to get a new one because NYCHA hadn't provided a replacement, and then hadn't taken the old stove. And when they move it back, all that paint gets on the ground. It's like there hasn't been a fresh coat of paint in ages. It's not hard to fix these problems. It's just NYCHA is it's a public crisis. People pay rent on these apartments, and more rent than what most Americans pay, by the way, for New York public housing. It's not like it's totally federally funded, but even then they need to do something.
Yeah.
Crowder's dad's t-shirt. Sam, what the hell? Is the AM Quickie audio version ever coming back? The emails are great, but it was the perfect length for a 7-minute shower listening, and now I'm left with nothing. Do you know what it's like to have to listen to David Pakman in the shower? I do not. No, thank you. LOL. I'm kidding. I would never listen to that guy, especially since everyone knows he stole your set. Anyways, please bring back the audio Quickie. Left is best. Working on it. There's nothing. Has anybody ever seen me on this program move quickly on anything? Honestly. Like, come on. I am no David Pakman. David Pakman is like, maybe we should have I don't know, like
doesn't sleep.
No, he doesn't sleep. The guy's like he's like a machine. I'm not. I move slow. I move slow.
Well, you're high all the time.
And it's a part of it is I'm so high.
Sam's on CBD.
We've had 2 slip-ups today already.
Nice. This infrastructure bill in BBB reminds me of Senator La Follette in saying, in legislation, no bread is often better than half a loaf. Half a loaf, as a rule, dulls the appetite and destroys the keenness of interest in attaining the full loaf. That was the theory, at least in terms of like why you didn't decouple the Build Back Better from the bipartisan bill. What you did?
I don't know. I agree with you on that strategy if there was a path to really do that, but. These are material interests. We're not talking about, slight improvements or big improvements from this is, communities across this country are in total disarray. Like bridges are about to like fall under. So.
But they're going to fall in all of their districts. And the point, and the thing is I'm not saying that you necessarily kill it, but what is the difference between the bipartisan bill that passes today and the bipartisan bill that passes in January or in February? That's my point.
Yeah. I agree.
And, Joe Manchin kills that one. Now, I think, the media was definitely trying to make it seem like the progressives were destroying this, even though that there was supposedly a deal to couple these things. They maybe should have been more aggressive in touting that deal when it happened so that you could build that narrative a little bit more and they wouldn't feel the same amount of pressure. But
can I ask you a question? You probably have more awareness than I would on this. All of these reports that have come out about his investment in coal, I'm very curious, what the public subsidies are. And it seems like that would be almost on the edge of an insidery. It's one thing to invest in a company; it's another thing to invest in a company that's receiving massive amounts of public subsidies while you're a sitting senator. and calls for an investigation.
I got to imagine there's a half a dozen things you could call for an investigation about Joe Manchin. I mean, that's the thing.
Let's talk about it.
Well, I mean, that's what we've been sort of saying. We need more LBJ from Joe Biden than FDR at this point.
Oh, we're gonna look into that little, the little degree your daughter
Good
got.
for you.
Huh?
Yeah, that's great about your daughter getting that degree without any things, and then going on to raise the price of insulin as a direct result of that.
It'd be a real shame if someone looked into that.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe he needs a little bit of vindictive Trump in him right now.
But guys, there are like 16 steps in between that. There might be a direct thing. I mean, there might be like, if you're on the board of an organization or if you're getting money from an organization that's public subsidies, that's like straight up, it's beyond investigation. That's a violation. No?
Maybe.
I mean, I think they should look into everything. I'm not doubting that, but it's like an easier case to make that. I mean, listen,
but I think the bottom
Maxine Waters got investigated for that when her husband, when she was in the banking committee, and her husband and I think nephew got in trouble.
I think the idea is that like it's not even a question of you threaten investigations, and I don't feel like that's happening.
Well, remember when we had watchdog groups when there's places like Crew before David Brock took them over? Because that's what they did. Like there used to be all these government transparency organizations, and then the Clinton industrial complex was like, we're gonna, they need money, we're gonna take them over. And sure enough, they don't do anything now.
I didn't realize that Brock had taken that over.
Have we heard anything from David Brock over the past 4 years?
He had a heart attack, I remember.
Oh, he did? I didn't know.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Let's take a phone call.
It's all that loving he used to do for the Clintons.
Sorry, I was like, maybe we could check in.
Let's get bro.
Not good, Emma.
Calling from an 850 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is me, isn't it?
I believe it is.
All right, awesome. Hey, Sam, how's it going? This is Maddie Washburn calling from coastal Oregon.
Maddie, just back off your phone just a little bit. Your exuberance is making it break up a little bit.
Yes, it's like a little another shot of coffee for me. Thank you for your enthusiasm.
Oh, sorry about that. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I've been wanting to call y'all for a couple years now, over a couple different things, actually. And it's always been a thing of like, is this useful to call about? But after y'all's video the other day, going over Sean's Jimmy Dore video, I thought of a way to string my thoughts together, and hopefully I've got something useful to say.
Okay.
So I was raised by sorry, I get a little bit of phone anxiety. Wow. I was raised by a Republican talk show host, and ended up moving out from his house back around like 2009 or so. And in 2012, 2013, something like that, I ended up finding the TYT network and started trying to go from there to be like, oh, let me start trying to consume more media with different viewpoints from what I've been raised on. Because like I had had questions about my dad's mode of thinking, I guess you could say, and never found answers that seemed suitable to the questions I was trying to ask. And TYT, to a degree, was doing that. And from there, I found Kyle Kalinske, I found David Pakman, Jimmy Dore, et cetera. But Jimmy was the one that really stuck out to me because of the fact that like he was so angry about these things that it seemed like you need to be angry about. And given my upbringing and being raised in those right-wing circles, the anger is a thing that's definitely prevalent in that mode of thought. So while he was saying stuff that was different from what I was raised on, it was said in a way that felt familiar and safe to listen to.
Interesting.
So you move forward a couple years, and we're at the Kavanaugh hearings, and my family, multiple members of my family, are trying to talk to my dad about this because he is, still a right-wing talk show host, and he's saying a lot of things that are hurtful to a lot of us around all of this. I have family members who have been, the victims of sexual assault, and they, we're trying to talk to him and be like, look, what you're saying, like, diminishes our experience. Like, what the hell? Like, why are you, being this way? Why are you so stubborn about this? And obviously, in hindsight, it's all about the money. Before Trump got into office, the man was very anti-Trump. But as soon as he went into office, it was tides are changing, and now I've got to be pro-Trump in order to feed my audience and keep food on the table. And so around the Kavanaugh stuff, I cut my dad off entirely. I was just like, look, I see the hurt that you are causing to the rest of the family, and I need to I need to distance myself from this. Like, I cannot, reward you and act like things are okay when you are being the way that you are. Like, it's ridiculous. And all during this time, I'm still, Jimmy Dore has become my main, I guess, source of YouTube news content. I was watching his live streams. I was, listening to the video uploads that he would do. I even went and saw the guy live. And yeah, right. And so, when was it? Like around, I think, late 2017, early 2018 or so. I'm just, bored, and I'm like, well, there's no new Jimmy Dore uploads. What else is there that I could find to listen to? And I come across the debate that you guys did with Jimmy. And it was a situation of like, just all of a sudden, like the cloud clearing and being like, wait a second.
Wow.
I had seen these guys before on YouTube, but like they came off, y'all do a bit of a more dry show.
You can say boring. You can say boring. You could say
we're all high. I don't know what you're talking about. There's a difference, but he's literally drinking on air, and we're just high. That's the difference. He drinks a lot on air, guys. It's not a secret.
My favorite critique from a lot of people, I mean, I get that critique across the ideological spectrum, but particularly from that set of people. Like, it's a boring ass show. Well, I mean, like, that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about how inaccurate the material that Jimmy's doing. But yes, it may be a boring ass show. Right. I mean, we try and maintain an exclusive audience. And one of the ways that we do that is by weeding out people who need something a little bit more interesting and exciting. That's the way we do it.
Right. Well, I mean, I wouldn't, as now, a 4-year listener, I wouldn't personally say that you guys are boring, but it did come across that way then. But when I came across that debate between you guys, it made me realize how little he knows about the things that he's talking about. And immediately I switched course, came over, became a consistent Majority Report listener. And to bring this back around to what I was saying with the entirety of the Sean video, my sister, my older sister, is an epidemiologist. So this whole pandemic, she has been dealing with, all of it, been on like the front lines doing whatever stuff is required of her and everything. And of course, my dad is still a right-wing talk show host.
Wow.
So he's going even further into, spreading misinformation about the pandemic, which is what, my sister's like entire life is wrapped around. So she's consistently having to go onto his social media posts and correct information time and again that he's feeding to his audience and being like, look, this isn't true. This isn't accurate. Like, why do you keep doing this? If you have questions, you can ask me. I'll tell you everything that I know. That way you can be more responsible with the information that you're giving your audience. And she was doing this for, God, I don't know how long, months, maybe even upwards of a year. We're almost 2 years into this pandemic now. And as a result of all of it, she finally decided to, cut the cord from him as well. And a lot of my other siblings, there are 6 of us, ended up following suit.
Wow.
And now, like, only 2 of them really talk to him now. And I say all this because I'm realizing in the wake of, Sean's video on Jimmy and y'all's coverage of it, that, like, had I not found that debate between you guys, it's possible that, like, I could have been sucked further down that rabbit hole and been ostracized further from my family. And so, like, I just wanted to call and just talk to you guys about how important it is that you guys do what you're doing, that it's important that, like, as much as people will talk about how it's ridiculous that all you do is talk about other podcasters because they don't, realize you're doing a live show and just re-upload the fun bits. Like that's important work that y'all are doing. That somebody has to push back on that because you never know who's going to end up seeing y'all's videos because of, being part of that echo chamber and then waking up to it.
Well, first off, thank you for saying that.
Yes,
appreciate it.
you.
Amazing story. I mean, God, man, I feel like you may have a sitcom there.
I was just thinking that, like, apart from the tragic ending.
That's a movie right there with that whole, that's crazy. And so, yes, well, your sister, I can only imagine, how difficult that must be for you and your family in that regard. And it just, what is your dad, like, what did your dad, I think I know who your dad is. You
might, he's been around for a while. I wouldn't say that he's huge or anything, but he's filled in for, I think, like Mark Levin before. Some of those other kind of level.
Yeah. His first name start with
same last name as me. So.
First name starts with a D.
What's your last name?
Yes, absolutely. That's him.
People are going to find it, but I just, I probably came across him, when he filled in for Levin, because there have been different times where I have, listened to quite a bit of Levin. But I'm curious as to, like, when you say that he changed from a never Trumper to a Trumper, because that's where he saw his audience going. How much does, what, like foundationally speaking, like, how much does he believe in what he is saying? And I would also say, like, that change in dynamic, one of the things that's amazing about Jimmy Dore was that he would, for a long time, attack, one of his favorite people to attack was Chris Hayes, because he was claiming that it was all about ratings and this and that. And the thing that I think people don't understand is that YouTube it radicalizes people, but it also radicalizes the content creators.
Totally.
They are getting.
Oh no!
Go ahead.
Absolutely. I'm a YouTube creator myself. I work with a small team on this channel, Watchtower Database, where we just talk about, like, superhero cartoons and comics and stuff. But, like, we're constantly seeing, because there are so many, alt-right and right-wing people in that space creating stuff, and we're seeing, like, we see them constantly get trapped in their own echo chamber of, like, oh, I said this thing's woke because a gay person's in it. So, like, that did a lot of numbers. So now if I say it here again, like, people are talking about X-Men is about to go woke, and it's like, my dude, that's been a civil rights allegory the entire time. What are you talking about? But they don't care because it boosts up that even if you're wrong, you're still getting comments telling you you're wrong, and it pushes you up in the algorithm.
Yep.
And there's if you don't, like, actually care about what you're saying and care about your audience, then you're you're chasing the money.
Yeah, and I don't even know how conscious people are of that happening. And you know, I think it's. I mean, I've felt for a long time that it's really problematic. Now, in the context of, you know, somebody who has a a regional show on some level, like your dad. I don't know that he's not nationally syndicated. Is he? He's probably on a couple of stations, but I don't think he's national.
So he's actually not on radio anymore.
Okay.
Whoever he was working for, I think it was Clear Channel, I believe, ended up doing, vax mandates. And he refused to get the vaccine mandate. So now he's doing what he likes to refer to as a worldwide podcast. So like it's on the internet. It's all worldwide.
Yes, I know. I'm familiar with the dynamic. Yes, we are.
But like I tried listening to like one episode of the show just because he was like, I'm going to tell the story about how I ended up getting fired and it's going to be like ridiculous. And I thought, there will be a good laugh here. Let's go. And I get 5 minutes into it and he's crying about how they asked him to be respectful of trans people in the workplace. And I'm just like,
how did
this isn't anywhere near as fun when it's not Ben Shapiro or Steven Crowder and when it's
your
someone
dad?
you're
Right.
actually
I would
related
imagine.
to.
But how did
I would
you
guess that's very painful. I'm
how
really
did
sorry.
you? Yeah. How did you and your siblings, to the extent that they have, how did you guys like stray so far from the fold that you now have this perspective? I mean, what was the process for that?
Well, so two of my siblings are still kind of in that same sphere, but my older sister, almost immediately, as soon as she could, left the house to go do college, was living with friends, etc. And like her being a woman and being, raised in all of this, there's a lot more toxicity there that like I'm sure was a lot much more noticeable to her because she was getting more than me or any of my brothers because we're seen as the guys, like it's all jokes for us, but like the jokes end up landing on her or whatever. And so so she left the house almost immediately, went to college, and I don't know what her story specifically is from there, but like with her being an epidemiologist, it seems as though it's very much like pursuit of knowledge and ended up, kind of wringing her out of that. As for me and some of my younger brothers, I left the house whenever they decided to move back away and almost immediately ended up with a much larger social circle than I had ever had. Because in high school, like my dad was like, I don't want you hanging out with people your age. You got to hang out with your younger brother's friends, et cetera, because I don't want you out doing drugs and smoking and this, that, and the other. And so when I moved out, come to find out, people my age who do smoke and do drugs aren't anywhere near as scary as, he was starting to say. And it was just like, well, I wonder what else he's got wrong. But a large part of like, I guess the de-radicalization from those fundamentalist views more or less was just like really like me and my younger brothers all got really plugged into like our local punk music scenes and stuff like that. And there's while those scenes definitely have their problems of their own, there's like a lot of predatory older dudes trying to look for younger girls and stuff like that. There was a lot less tolerance for bigotry. And so you'd end up learning a lot more from just spending time with people that weren't like you. All of a sudden, I had queer people in my friend group. I had people of color in my friend group. And it was just living in an entirely different world than I was raised in, where went to church every day or every Sunday, and like almost everyone there was just a white Christian Republican.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how religious your family was, but it almost like goes. And that's part of
incredibly religious. God, I could probably go off on a tangent on that for like quite a while.
Well, it's a fascinating story and good for you. And I'm sorry, I mean, I imagine there's also a tremendous amount of difficulty involved in it and therapy, I would imagine on some level, at least if not.
Unfortunately, no health insurance right now. So never had the chance to do therapy. Almost everything has been.
Well, you're doing pretty good. I gotta say, without it,
you have some self-awareness here, and I really appreciate, speaking of like therapy terms, your emotional vulnerability to share all of this, even though of course it's so personal, because hearing this is really helpful for us to understand how the impact some of the work that we're doing is having, and then also just to get a window into what it might be like if your dad's a right-wing talk show host, very similar to, some of the people we cover here.
I can't wait for my kids to call into a program in 10, 15 years and complain about how woke I am. I'm joking.
I was like actually, sitting listening to the show yesterday when that one gentleman called in about his first kid, and you were talking about how you dealt with raising your children and everything. Like, I literally just sat there and thought, oh damn, that's what dads are supposed to be like while I'm sitting here waiting on hold, and it didn't end up making it on the line yesterday, but I was just sitting there like, this is I'm trying to call and talk about my experience, and Sam is showing what parents are supposed to be like for their children, and just damn, would have been nice.
Well,
I have a question for you. Are the rest of of that generation, the rest of your family members kind of in a similar camp? Like, I look at Paul Gosar, who's most of his siblings have denounced him, but his mom's still in touch with him and still believes in the same stuff that Paul Gosar, the guy who sent out that tweet of AOC being, hurt, and the anime tweet. And so his sister and other family members have come out against him and gone on air and talked about it. Does he have siblings? Do other people support him?
So you're talking from my dad's generation?
Yeah.
So I've actually oh God. So one he's got 3 or 4 brothers, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't remember the exact number. I do know one of them is God, what is the word? It's kind of Amish, but also for some reason really going into No. Yes, Mennonite. That's it. And he's raised his children as Mennonites, so they're a bit more, off the path than my dad is specifically. He's got another brother who I've had to just completely block from being able to contact me, because he would text me about whenever I tell my dad hey, this thing you're publicly saying isn't okay, he would just text me and be hey, leave your dad alone, blah blah blah. And last year I think was when it really broke down. He started sending me this is what Antifa is doing kind of articles just out of the blue, out of nowhere, because I was out there I was out there protesting with the BLM stuff last year, and so that uncle was just sending me that stuff out of the blue, hadn't talked to me in years, and I was like, look, you gotta just stop, you gotta leave me alone. I ended up having to block him, which bringing that up just reminded me that during all of that, during the protest, I was living in Seattle at the time. I just moved to Oregon. But I was living in Seattle, and obviously there were a lot of eyes on Seattle in the right-wing sphere, which my dad is part of. So there was a time or two where he would retweet a video that I was in that said, everybody in this video is a terrorist.
Wow. Did he know that you were in it?
I've got no clue, but he knew that I lived in Seattle and didn't even think to reach out to me. So wow. I don't think it mattered.
Wow. I just, well, look, good for you. I mean, it takes a tremendous amount of courage and sort of strength of will and It's got to be super hard. And I think it sounds like you're lucky that you have some siblings that you can lean on. Are you close with those siblings who are not, who have sort of left the fold, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, we have a group chat with each other that we try to, talk to each other in almost every day. But given, the context of how we were raised, sometimes that gets a little difficult, and we'll end up, butting heads because we're not the most emotionally, I guess, stable, you could say. But we do try to stay close as we can.
Well, all I can tell you is that most people are not emotionally stable. So you seem pretty good. You seem to be doing pretty well for yourself. But thanks so much for the call. It's fascinating. And where can people see your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so our YouTube channel is called Watchtower Database. We mostly talk about like the old superhero cartoons from like the 90s through the 2000s and stuff like that. We branch out and do a couple different things here and there. But yeah, that's us, Watchtower Database.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, man. Really appreciate the call. Fascinating stuff.
Well, thank you for having me on.
All right.
It's nice to like finally talk to y'all about this after thinking about it all for years.
Wow. Yeah, it's fascinating. Really amazing story. Really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
If Fox came out with a show that's like conservative talk show dad, epidemiologist daughter, come on.
I don't even know if I should take a phone call after that, because I got news for you. It's going to be a little bit of a letdown.
I know, right?
Whatever's coming up next is going to be a little bit of a letdown. Let's do some sound then in that case. Yeah, this is pretty funny, actually. This is almost like it's... Laura Ingraham has the... what number was it? Laura Ingraham has this guy on to do... people remember this from back in the day, the American Family Association, where they would do like culture reports. And back when I was doing AM talk radio, I would do these prank phone calls to the American Family Association, because they would do like reviews of Shark's Tale, for instance, and how it was sending like a gay transgender message because Lenny the shark wanted to cross-dress as a dolphin or something like that. I mean, there was some weird thing, and I would just call and go into it with them. So Laura Ingraham, digging deep for her culture report, she brings this guy, Raymond Arroyo, on to talk about all of the disgusting things in culture. And, I mean, I'm clueless about a lot of the stuff that's going on around me.
Do you know what the show is?
Well, that was the question that was asked of Laura Ingraham, and the answer was apparently no. Here is their exchange. He is trying to explain to Laura Ingraham about a show on Netflix that has a bad message, according to him.
You know, I was watching an episode of You where measles came up.
Wait. When did I mention measles?
I don't know. It was on You.
Wait, what was on me? What are you talking about? Right? Is Raymond even hearing what I'm saying? I never had the measles.
Was on You.
We never did a measles and vaccine episode. Is this a joke?
I know.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
It was on You. It was on You.
The best part is how defensive she is about, wait a second, we don't do our anti-vax stuff about measles. We just do it about COVID. What are you talking about? And she's racking her brain like, did I let out did we slip out, like, and slip up and do like a anti-measles vaccine?
Did we color outside the anti-vax lines?
Exactly. Whoa. All right, so go back to the beginning. People watch this again because it really is. It's just unbelievable.
Is he doing a bit though? He seems like he might be doing a bit, because how do you not get where her confusion comes from at this point?
It's hard to tell. He's doing that, he's really committed to like the 1950s baseball announcer voice, right?
Yeah, strange.
He's coming out
go
with
back a little bit.
I was watching an episode of You where measles came up.
Wait. When did I mention measles?
I don't know. It was on you.
What was on me? What are you talking about? Is Raymond even hearing what I'm saying? I never had the measles.
Was on you.
We never did
I never had the measles.
We never did a measles and vaccine episode. Is this a joke?
I know.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
It was on you. It was on you.
I've never had, Raymond, I've never had measles. What are you talking about? This is stupid.
It was an episode of a show, Laura.
What's it called?
You.
What is he talking about?
It's called You.
I've never done a show on measles. I just completely give up. We got to get out of
It's a show
I give up.
called You on Netflix.
There's a show called Lowering on Netflix.
Who's on first?
I'm moving on to Adele. I can't explain this to you. The pop singer had an Oprah-produced special.
No, that's got to be a bit.
It's a bit.
I get it.
It's a bit.
No, it's the show You. I get it. I get what he's doing. There's actually a show called You on Netflix, but I don't know what measles had to do with it. I've seen that show.
We got that right.
No, I don't think. No, I don't think it's a bit though. Is what I'm trying to say. I think he's that dense.
I think he's doing a bit. I don't know about Ingram, but he is.
You guys know the Who's on First bit, right?
Yeah, that's what I said. Who's on first? But
right. I think they're doing a bit. They have to be doing a bit.
I mean, at least
I don't think she was.
I don't know if she was.
No, but they're in on it. Yes.
But what?
Yep.
So I mean,
why?
You're getting some free publicity there.
Why? I mean,
that show the human side.
We are hip with the Netflix show.
We just did the old Abbott and Costello routine.
Yeah, you fill your show up with crap like that. You don't have to do actual anti-vax messaging.
Right, exactly. I hope you will take a moment where we interrupt this racist, white supremacist moment with a little bit of lighthearted comedy.
I think we are monsters.
They had to be. They had to be. Had to be faking it.
Does she look different?
A little.
I was like, wait, she doesn't. I would have never recognized her in a million years. I mean, not that that matters, but she looks vastly different. Like she's a different human being. On top of that.
Who's on that? It's a Who's on You. Who's on You? Right?
Who's on you?
Who's on you?
Who's on you?
Yeah,
Who's on you?
I'm pretty sure that's
nobody.
Fake. I think it's fake, and then they're gonna come out tonight like we played a joke and blah blah blah.
I'm sure their audience got it.
Yeah. Yes. Let's go to this is actually let's play the church one first, okay? Everybody knows about this. What I can't even find the number. What number is it?
11 and 12. I gave you another.
Oh, it's on the other sheet. That's why. I don't see the sheet. What church was it at?
It's a Cornerstone Church in San Antonio, Texas.
What's amazing to me about this is just that, like, these are all adults. Now, when I was in high school, it was a public school, and like, we didn't, some of us were a little bit of a we misbehaved. And sometimes, like, if there was a teacher who we didn't like, there was we had these dumb things where, like, we'd be yelling "Hamp" for Hampton Beach up in frickin' like in New Hampshire. Like, I can't even, like.
You don't remember what the logical connection was?
No, I remember. Teacher? There was none. There was absolutely none. It was just a way for us to be obnoxious.
It's a shared meaning and being obnoxious with it.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, but we were morons.
Yeah.
We were 16-year-old moronic boys.
That was 7 years ago?
This is what? 7 years ago.
70.
Yeah, exactly. 70 years ago. And we would just, like, whenever the teacher would turn around, "Hamp," and it was just like the most childish thing in the world. And I thought, like, you have to really be a 16-year-old boy to do something this like ridiculously moronic. Well, it turns out, no, actually, you could actually just be a full-grown adult doing it at church. Here is an entire congregation at John Hagee's. And he is a real piece of work, this dude, chanting the new Republican rallying cry, which is "Let's go, Brandon," which, of course, is the secret code for F you, Biden.
Oh, well, clever.
Your entire church is yelling "F you, Biden," but we're doing it in a secret way. Like are you like 16? Like
that's the thing, is they are sort of 16. Like
there's I mean, this is when we say arrested development, that's what this is.
Well,
they just all stopped at that age.
They love coded messaging, right? I mean, they love it when it comes to like racial language. They love saying things that really mean the N-word or something, or a racial slur that aren't that. I mean, that's Crowder's whole brand.
I was just going to say, if you want to understand that, watch Sean, or you want to understand Crowder's
Sean
show.
Crowder.
Yeah, John Crowder.
Oh, yeah, no, but I mean, that's the whole, they love those kinds of things. We lost Naomi and it distracted me.
Well, where did she go? Oh, okay. She had to go for a moment. Let's play what's number 12 here. This is Jen Psaki at the White House and addressing the issue of this, which is just like, are you like,
why?
Like, are you kidding me? Like, what this country's just gotten so well gotten. I mean, we've been there, but this is just beyond embarrassing for the country.
I can quickly. Across this country, we've seen this new phenomenon lately, chanted at sporting events and on signs. The phrase is "Let's go Brandon," a sort of code for a profane slogan attacking President Biden. What does the president make of that?
I don't think he spends much time focused on it or thinking about it.
The president said when he came into office on Inauguration Day, he said he was going to help get rid of the uncivil war in this country. So I guess through that lens right now, does the president think there are things that he can do differently, or how does he react to the stuff he sees out there when it is one of his primary promises or desires to help bring Americans together?
Well, it takes two to move towards a more civil engagement discourse in this country, and the president's going to continue to operate, as you said, from the promise he made early on, which is that he wants to govern for all Americans. He's going to deliver for all Americans, as is evidenced by the infrastructure bill that he's going to sign on Monday. That's going to help expand broadband to everyone, no matter your political party, no matter whether you voted for him or not. That's going to replace lead pipes, make sure kids have clean drinking water, whether you're a Democrat or Republican or not political at all. That's how he's going to govern, and certainly we're hopeful we'll have partners to move toward more civil discourse with in the future.
Thank you.
Honestly,
great question by Peter Alexander. Thank you for upholding our democracy.
And you know what? I mean, good for her for not saying like, you got to be effing kidding me. But honestly, it's like going up to a parent and going like, when are you going to get your kid to stop pooping?
Yeah.
Well, they're 2 years old. They're pooping in their pants. But when honestly.
But you ran on an anti-poop platform.
You wanted to just make sure that, that there wasn't, it's just unbelievable.
I mean,
the way you phrase that question is, are you worried that this country is just completely so irredeemable that that everything that you do has absolutely no impact? That's the real question you ask. You've got people in a church yelling, "Let's go Brandon," because they want to say "F you, Biden." Yeah. At least why not just say "F you, Biden"?
And so somehow it's Biden's fault in that area. I mean, I'll defend Biden on "Let's go Brandon." Would she be happy if there was some sort of task force set up, or would he be happy? I mean, there was some sort of task force set up. She answered, actually, yes, we are looking into it very deeply, and we have assigned this special coalition to weed out all the people saying "Let's go Brandon." We've partnered with big tech. They'll be listening on your phones. If you say it, it'll be put in the database. Thank you for the good question, Peter Alexander.
So nuts.
All in the name of civility.
What else should we do?
Can do Newsmax trying to be edgelords, trying to distinguish themselves from Fox News without just calling people like the homophobic slurs and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's getting a little crowded in that space over there. I don't know. I guess.
Is that where bowling is? Eric Bowling?
Newsmax, yeah.
Glenn Greenwald with his doing his update on the ratings for Fox News. We should just say, like, look, cable television on any given night, the number of people watching cable television is like, I don't know, 2% of the population. Is it? I mean, So, and certainly Fox News does the best, but it doesn't tell you really that much about the country other than it tells you about cable news viewers.
Unless it said like validated when Meta was at the top of ratings.
Right. I mean, which of course it did not either. Exactly. And I should also say that it is weird for someone like Greenwald, but really anyone in my estimation, to say that you judge the quality of journalism based upon how many viewers watch it on cable television.
Well, he's the number one, one of the top journalists on Substack, right? So maybe that's why he's measuring it now. Axios reporting he gets paid between $1 and $2 million a year on Substack.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, like, you know, you judging news in that way, I think, is actually sort of part of the problem that we have in this country. I mean, part of the, you know, we were closer to that moment back in 2004 when Janina and I came on, but we would have many people on who explained to us that there was a time not long ago, relative to then anyways, in the 80s, as late as the 80s, when news organizations at all these networks lost money. They were lost leaders. They were ways in which you develop trust with an audience and build a brand. And you didn't expect the news to make money. And that all changed after, you know, with the advent of cable, with the loss of the fairness doctrine, with 24-hour news networks. I mean, that all changed. But the idea that you would measure the quality of a news product as a function of how many people watch it, that's a distinct question as to whether people trust the news or not. It's not whether they consume it. I mean, let's.
What would Rupert Murdoch do with a question like that?
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. And I mean, also, I don't know. Like, I mean, there have been billions upon billions of hamburgers sold at McDonald's. I have a feeling that Glenn probably doesn't go there to eat very often, and probably find some place that's a little bit better. But you wouldn't make that argument in any other context.
Well, they're also like, it's, you know, and add to that, there's just more programming. And so they become competitive with each other. And in that sense, it becomes less about, you know, we got the story before you did, although sometimes that's the case. And more about our ratings and you know how it is internally. Well, there's also, I mean, the metrics, like when I was a contributor, I had my manager telling me like, within like 20 seconds, you know, your ratings went up or down or whatever. The ratings went up or down when you did this one thing. Keep doing that. It has nothing to do with the news. It's like, look at the camera the way that you did.
And you know, and that's also one of the problems that is a function of all the data you get on YouTube. I mean, there is, and I to be honest with you, don't dig into it terribly much, but and when I do, I don't really understand it. But you can see in the course of any like segment that you put out or something, like at what point you lose a certain percentage of the audience relative to what most videos lose a certain percentage of the audience, et cetera, et cetera. And it, you know, that's the irony about people criticizing people on cable news for chasing ratings. Like you get down to it in the second on YouTube. It's all a problem that like all, I think, content creators have to at least be aware of and try and avoid getting stuck in that trap.
Although the margins for like people on YouTube are slimmer than they are for, say, like a cable network. Cable network can feasibly play around a little bit more. They have advertisers to an extent that.
What do you mean? Like, well, I mean, it depends on who you're talking about. I mean, like, you know, you've got people on YouTube making what, you know, a 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock PM host does, and on those cable channels, and they're you know, their executive producers coming down going like, the first 15 minutes, you know, we lost everybody when we were talking about X, Y, or Z. And
yes. Yeah. Okay. I mean, the top, tippity top. Yeah.
Yeah, of YouTube, without a doubt. But the dynamic is the same. I mean, the dynamic is the same. I'm convinced.
It's the tippity top of YouTube, and like with exception to like Maddow and like 9 p.m. ratings, pretty much a lot of hosts on these channels that are the tippity top. Like,
yeah, I mean, my point was just, like, on the whole, YouTube creators versus, not to get too in the weeds on this, YouTube creators may have. They don't have a massive apparatus to the same degree that cable news does, where if their ratings aren't great on one evening, or say like if an average YouTube creator, if they don't hit on a few videos, that's why like Matt and I were talking the other day about how much we appreciate long form video essay content, but that's not incentivized on YouTube because it's only one video a month.
And like,
but you were do investigative pieces from cable news because they have the ability and they have more money at their disposal.
Oh yes, but I mean, I'm not sure. Okay.
Well, and one more thing, just to add to that, like, let's just be real. Like, YouTube is exploitative too. They're exploiting a lot of so is cable news, exploiting a lot of free talent with this like idea that they're going to build their audience when the algorithms are so stacked, especially if like you're not one of the bigger names. It's really hard to break through. And I think a lot of like young people who want to start shows should be aware of that. It's like when there are contributors that go on cable news networks and never get paid and do the circuit for like years or whatever, that jam is. But at least there's support there. Like when you do a show, you've got to like come up with the content, get the guests, get the lights and the sound. You don't have to do that if you're a contributor to MSNBC.
No.
And that's how, YouTube makes their money, exploiting free labor.
So with all that said, let's check this out. Well, we were started. But here is the former Bill Clinton and former Donald Trump advisor, Dick Morris. I call him a toe sucker, but I want people to know I'm not kink shaming. It's just that was just one of his
descriptive.
It was descriptive. When you have to try and impress someone that you're paying to hang out with you, that is, I think, a little bit of a problem. Like, I cast no judgment on sex work or people who you respectfully use sex, the services of a sex worker. I just feel like when you're paying somebody to hang out with you, and you still got to impress them, that's indicative, I think, of a larger problem. And that's what he supposedly did when he would get on the phone with Bill Clinton when he was with a sex worker, and just to like impress them. But here he is on Newsmax, and they're railing against the selection of Mitch Landrieu as the coordinator of the infrastructure bill rollout. I mean, they are really digging deep for this. I don't think this is, but here.
Time of Katrina, when they packed them all into the Coliseum, or the Astrodome, the whatever it was called, the Houston Stadium.
Yeah.
And people were in New Orleans. I'm sorry, the Superdome, and people were starving to death. People were living in filth. And they had to be evacuated. And he was the lieutenant governor, part of the administration that was in charge of this. Now, the other guy, Buttigieg, who I personally call Booty Boy, hope you don't mind, the last budget he was in charge of,
Pause it for 1 second.
South Bend, Indiana.
I mean, this is just it's just unbelievable. First off, the idea that, and Katrina was a disaster, and it was really the the FEMA that was a complete disaster. And in the privatization that went on, and the idea that the lieutenant governor blew it during Hurricane Katrina is pretty much a reach.
It's well documented. It was the federal government's
terrible
response.
And the idea that like you're going to attack Landrieu from something that was 16 years ago. I mean, it's just sort of
a bit convoluted.
But I love how he's like, I hope you don't mind, I call him Booty Boy.
And then Rob Schmidt's face was like,
wow.
What is the response there, even as a crazy conservative? Am I supposed to laugh?
I guess the real question would be like, why? Why you call him Booty Boy?
I just I mean, you were talking about the sex workers that had to deal with him before. They should have gotten paid extra for the emotional labor of having to deal with this human being. Emotional labor is real.
I was going to say, I hope they upcharge this
and
guy.
And that voice. Whew.
All right, so go back. Let's catch that booty boy again. This is just so sad.
Oh, yes. Right.
Oh, and incidentally, a reminder. This guy was very influential in the Clinton administration.
So he's talking about something that happened 16 years ago and is using 16-year-old homophobia
you don't mind
as well. What a throwback.
Boy. That's what I call him, booty boy, because he's a father and has 2 kids. Okay.
Starving to death. People were living in filth, and they had to be evacuated. And he was the lieutenant governor, part of the administration that was in charge of this. Now, the other guy, Buttigieg, who I personally call Booty Boy, hope you don't mind, the last budget he was in charge of was South Bend, Indiana. That's $389 million a year. Now he's in charge of $500 billion a year, 3 extra zeros, with no administrative experience to be able to deal with it. And not only is he in charge, Rob, but he is now probably the most powerful man in Washington.
What?
I mean, I think there's some truth to the fact that Buttigieg has a tremendous amount of power as a function of having an actual infrastructure bill, and most transportation secretaries do not get that kind of one-time big bump in the budget, and but that's the only thing that is even remotely sensical that Dick Morris said on there. But I suppose good for them for getting that granular on this stuff. But
well, he's for Newsmax.
Yeah, booty a little bit.
A little bit too granular, because I feel like I don't know who Dick Morris would want to replace Buttigieg with, but I imagine I probably wouldn't be super happy.
Booty boy.
Yeah. Sorry.
Booty boy. I think you want to.
I can't wait to hear Pete Buttigieg's response, because he gets in the mix with this stuff.
I mean, I think Buttigieg is going to respond to Dick Morris on Newsmax.
I hope he does.
I got to say, I'm a little bit embarrassed that we're even covering it. But when Dick Morris is calling somebody booty boy, and to both of them, we're so transgressive. I mean, I can't believe
That's the thing is, I just think about this, how they're branding themselves compared to Fox News. And it's I guess we'll go there. We'll say things like booty boy.
We'll say booty boy. Just unbelievable.
It's where the canceled Fox hosts go to survive. Lou Dobbs still hasn't been canceled yet. Just wait till he gets a show.
I call him booty boy.
I mean, they'd say that because they can't just call him the F slur for gay people.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
Again, back to the Let's Go Brandon thing. They love trafficking in encoded language and secret. We're gonna play secret code for our little homophobic jokes.
I didn't even actually pick up on that. But he's just saying I call him ass guy. Ass boy.
Yeah. Who's on first, Sam? Who's on first?
Honestly, this guy, how old is Dick Morris? 1 million years old?
Wait,
don't
how
you
did
ever
you not
grow
pick
out?
up on that?
It's just it's the most juvenile thing I can imagine a full-grown man saying on television.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty.
Let me intermix my my political analysis with reminding you that some gay men are involved in ass play. I mean, come on. It's I just don't understand how these people wake up and
74 years old. He's a Columbia University graduate.
There you go. There you go.
I thought you were going to say professor.
We must be so proud.
Another just glowing example of our institutions being top notch. I'm so glad that we herald them to the degree that we do.
Stinky says liberals spent the better part of 5 years saying F Trump. Getting worked up about Let's Go Brandon is almost as pathetic as thinking it's clever.
True.
I'm not worked up about people saying Let's Go Brandon. I'm just saying why not just say F Biden?
Biden.
The ridiculous part about and maybe you're not talking about me, but the ridiculous part of the F Brandon, the Let's Go Brandon thing is just how juvenile are you? Just say F Biden. Like, you think you're doing something. Like, that's like, honestly, it's like I have this relationship. Like, my 8-year-old son has this relationship with words.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, this means something else, and so it's transgressive.
It's like why they like to flash the white power 3 fingers sign, right? It's the exact same game of like, look at us having a shared meaning joke. That's funny to people.
Well, I mean, and you've talked about this before, how Limbaugh just trained millions of conservatives to, okay, if the politician or if someone like myself or now Tucker Carlson is saying something, like, look for the deeper meaning here. We know we can't say this publicly, even though it's all true. So the coding is just downstream from that.
It just can't get over it. Like Saul, it's the same energy. Last night, Saul goes to me, goes, hey, he said something like, call me stupid. And I'm like, I don't know how I do it. He goes, no, just go ahead, call me stupid. And I'm like, okay, you're stupid. He goes, I know I am, but I know you are, but what am I? And he was so proud of himself. Like he had he just flipped, like done this jujitsu on me. He goes, call me fat. And I'm like, you're fat. And he goes, yeah, you are, but what am I? And he was like, the pride that he felt in himself, like there was like in his face. And I was just like, that's amazing. Like, first of all, like you're definitely my kid. And then I was like, that is the same exact energy as like Dick Morris going like, I call him Booty Boy. Like, honestly, like you're so proud of yourself.
So now when you look at your son, when he makes a silly joke,
I think about Dick Morris.
You're going to see.
Yeah.
Aren't you happy that you do this for a living?
I'm going to say to him, like,
the childlike innocence of Saul is now going to be forever intertwined with Dick Morris'
I'm
shit-eating
sorry.
grin.
I think both of that energy is just sort of like a little bit like ridiculous, but you can play it off with an 8-year-old boy. That's all I'm saying.
Well, it's like the Boogaloo Boys. I mean, think about it. Like the Proud Boys, the Boogaloo Boys, they all have their little costumes. They just get in, they have their little clubs, and they go become like white supremacists. Listen, Kyle Rittenhouse was just a little boy. That's all he was, guys. It's not just cover. It's not just like coding. It's cover. It's like, oh, they're just boys being boys.
45-year-old man, 50-year-old man who's like, I'm going to set up a group where you got to name your favorite cereals and you get your butt slapped. What? Are you serious? Are you serious? Yeah. We're going to keep punching you in the arm until you name your favorite cereals. What? Seriously? No, that's how we're going to show how tough we are. Okay. Wow. All right. Final call of the day. I just get so amazed by these.
Booty Boys is the next Boogaloo Boys, maybe.
When I see an 8-year-old boy like have that kind of pride in something so silly, I'm like, nah, whatever. But I mean, like, even for an 8-year-old, it's sort of like, really, dude? You gotten past this like a year or two ago? Like, you didn't need your butt wiped anymore? Like, come on. All right, the final call of the day. I just added the fanfare. Never done that before.
Yeah, wow.
Yep, just lost my place.
Maybe it's got to be a special call.
They better be. We've had some great calls today.
Oh, yeah.
809, better be good.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
I am Manuel from the Dominican Republic.
Manuel from the Dominican Republic. Welcome to the program.
Nice. I wanted to talk to you guys, or more exactly, make you aware about the current abuses being perpetrated by the Dominican government against migrants and residents of Haitian descent here. That's something that you guys would like to talk about?
Of what descent?
Haitian descent.
Okay, in the Dominican Republic. Yeah, okay, tell us.
So last week, the government started forcefully removing pregnant women from maternities. I don't know if you guys have heard the news. Many of them were close to give birth, and there have been a lot of complications that have been reported about it. Many of them have given birth mid-transport to detainment camps. We don't know if everyone has died yet, but we know that there has been a lot of issues, a lot of people that are in delicate state. Some of them are in critical conditions. There are videos on Twitter and Facebook that have been taken about pregnant women losing a lot of blood, children being malnourished.
I'm seeing now that the United Nations has now addressed it as well. So, I mean, the story's big.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. We don't really know if they have stopped, but the reason they are claiming they are doing it is because they say they are spending a lot of money on migrant women on maternities, which they say it's about $200 million they have spent this year, which is a lie, because that will mean they are spending more than twice the amount that you will spend in one of the most expensive hospitals in the country. Everything started like last month when the Haitian chancellor made some comments regarding crime in the Dominican Republic, and it seems that the government is just retaliating against Haitian people of Haitian descent, maybe trying to get an apology from the Haitian government or something. They announced plans to start a record of all undocumented migrants in the country because they want to know the situation about it, but it's probably a lie because we already have a record of that, of the statistics that get collected every 2 years about the state of undocumented migrants in the country. Also, it appears a lot of ultranationalist groups with ties to many government officials are starting to demand the government to build a wall in the middle of Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and they are making plans to have militia and vigilante groups to report and abuse Haitians. I don't know what else I can say about it, but I just wanted to let you know, guys, about what's going on, because it looks like the international community is not paying attention to anything at best, and at worst is just leaving the situation behind. And many of us here fear that the situation can escalate a lot. Many people have, how to say this? Many people are looking at parallels of what happened in 1937, the last time there was a crisis in Haiti and the government decided to act. But things are different now because last time we were under a fascist dictatorship, and right now we're in some sort of a liberal government that wants to represent the people. And it seems that they are reacting to calls to appease the right wing, which are the ones who have always been demanding that the government has get a tougher hand against Haitians. And right now, we are just trying to figure out what a lot of people who are sympathetic to the cause of what Haitians suffer in the Dominican Republic. We are looking for ways of trying to help them out, trying to make them aware. And if you guys want, I have some links. They are in Spanish, though. I can translate them for you if you guys want. And sorry if I've been all over the place.
No. I appreciate it. I was not aware of what was happening there, and I think it's indicative of we see this. Obviously, this type of scapegoating and of like anti-immigrant sentiment is obviously not isolated in the Dominican Republic. But yeah, what is a website that we could get more information? Is the website itself in Spanish?
There is not a clear website, primarily because many of the groups, pro-human rights groups, are kind of a little scared right now. They're not even asking for volunteers because things are really dire. But the thing is that this is not going to solve anything. It's not going to give the ultranationalists what they want. It's not going to help anyone because the Dominican ruling class doesn't really want to get rid of undocumented Haitians because they depend on them for the agriculture and construction sector. So what we fear is that what is going to end up happening is that Haitian residents and migrants are going to be abused more. They're going to lose more rights, and they're going to live on a constant state of fear more than what they have now. And also, it can end up being spill over to people from Dominican descent that might start defending them, and there might be abuse as well. Like, for example, one common tactic of Dominican ultranationalists is to calling everyone who defends Haitian as well. While I am an example of that. I get called Asian all the time, even though both my parents are Dominicans, and all my grandparents and great-grandfathers, etc., etc.
Well,
and the last thing I wanted to ask you.
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to ask you an advice. Like, what would you do as a person like me in the current situation? You wanted to help.
If you wanted to help you or if help the Haitian migrant population?
The Haitian migrants. Because
I mean,
they're always around me. Like, I live close to a construction site and I see them every day. And I really would like to help them. I don't know what to do about it.
Mutual aid.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, you have a better, you might have a better sense. I mean, I have no idea what, you know, I've never been to the Dominican. I have no idea what opportunities you might have. The only thing I can think of, I mean, and this is a U.S. centric perspective because that's just where where I'm coming from. But like, you know, maybe if there's more awareness in this country, there's pressure that can be brought to bear by the State Department on the Dominican Republic government. I mean, I don't know what resources are available to you there, but I think, frankly, anything that you see, you know, in terms of like or videos or posting that on social media, I mean, that's the only I think there's mutual aid opportunity, maybe, but I don't know enough about.
The other thing is there's, Mayorkas is on today. He's testifying before Capitol Hill on immigration policy. And he has talked about the Haitian crisis really in terms of the border and the whipping and, what happened with the Border Patrol agents. But, there is a crisis partially, if not wholly, created by the U.S. government in Haiti, and they're aware of it. If there's just more conversation about other aspects of how the crisis in Haiti is not just spilling over to our borders, but affecting the DR, and then there's migrants from the DR who are showing up on boats in Puerto Rico, to the point where there was a video that went viral like a few months ago of Dominican migrants, maybe some Haitian migrants as well, showing up on the west coast of Puerto Rico, and people were trying to rescue them and pull them away from the Border Patrol agents. It's this crazy video. So the more, you link maybe from the US perspective at least, just how this crisis that we were very much responsible for or partly responsible for in Haiti, obviously the earthquake, we can't do anything. The political situation, we have a responsibility, and it affects many borders, not just our border, but many borders. I mean, I can only think of it from that perspective, but there's opportunities for mutual aid.
Document what you see.
That's right.
Like film it, I would guess, or write things down. Maybe, I don't know if you have any social media, but let us know as well, because if you see anything or if people do see things, I'll retweet it.
Yep.
If it looks
totally.
And I trust you, so.
And be safe. The thing about human rights groups being a bit afraid is worrying.
It's worrying.
Yes.
Listen, appreciate the phone call.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
So much. Gracias.
That is a couple of amazing callers.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing calls.
Special day.
Yeah.
That's so horrible. And the UN does nothing. The issue response and, literally nothing.
I'm not even seeing any U.S. outlets reporting on their condemnation, which is what that's useful for.
Yeah.
All right, let's do some IMs. I honestly have a morbid kind of amusement for the Republican presidential primary to come. There's going to be 3 types running: Trumpsters with less baggage that have to walk a tightrope, not attacking Trump while being attacked by Trump, so they can try and steal his base, and the road Republicans that outright runs against Trump and attacks him. The ultimate shit show. Yeah. I know.
That's the one. It's fun until it gets real.
I was going to say, yeah, the first time around, you could afford it to be fun because you didn't know how it was going to end.
Like when Trump was going after Jeb Bush, that was super fun, and then it started narrowing down. You're like, oh, one of these people is going to be the nominee.
Well, what was especially fun about that is you thought whoever the Democrat was be able to beat a television host, and we wouldn't have to.
Dude, Guy Powell. After watching Washington beat the Buccaneers, I'm ready to see the Giants whoop that ass on Monday night.
Please.
Go Big Blue.
Yeah. Go Big Blue. The idea that Brady is not going to be so pissed after losing to the Washington football team, it's like the worst case scenario. 1, division rival wins, and 2, Brady's going to be pissed going into a primetime game with the Giants, who are not as good as them. So great. I'm pumped.
Rob from Dedham. DJ died in 2007. Matt.
Sorry.
Yeah. Bill Russell has good politics. I'm Surprised Glenn doesn't do the radio ratings too, which is also a clean sweep for his right-wing hosts. I think radio ratings help bleed into TV too, thinking of Ingram, Hannity, etc. The right-wing programs always win because it's easier and more appealing to get people angry about stupid shit than actually explain the world as it is. Bunker Inspector. Hey, everyone. Yesterday, Sam talked to a new father about the 6 years he can expect of not sleeping. As a father of 2 and a year after old, I totally agree with you. I would never cheat on my wife, but I do fantasize about booking a hotel room and sneaking off for one night of 14 hours of uninterrupted sleep. But if my wife found out, I think she would be more furious than if I had spent it with another woman. In all honesty, I mean, when I would go to Vegas, it was like, what are you going to do down there? I'm going to sit in my freaking hotel room alone.
Imagine how she feels.
Yeah. Who?
The wife, the woman in the relationship with the kids.
Yeah. Well, maybe you guys could do a one thing where, you know, the wife holds it down for one night, uninterrupted sleep, then the man does. I mean, like, I don't know, maybe that's not feasible, but.
I mean, it is. I mean, certainly you can pump, and certainly after a certain period of time, the kids don't need to eat at night. Matthew from Indianapolis. I used to DJ for Larry Bird here in Indy. His favorite song that he wanted on loop was Under the Boardwalk. He also enjoys sneakily hiding karaoke mics. I don't even know
that is
how to respond to that. Mitch McConnell's so-face. Mitch McConnell's O-face. Much like the caller Maddie Washburn, I had to cut off my dad after years of trending rightward and me going the opposite direction. For context, my dad was wearing bootleg hats and shirts that said Trump 2012 on them in 2011 and felt that people like Sarah Palin were the future of the Republican Party. He was well ahead of the reactionary curve. Yeah, he was right. Does he have a stock tip?
I mean, yeah, Palin crawled so Trump could run.
Ryan Cole, my brother and I have both met Kareem. My brother said, "Hey, Cap," and the b-ball giant just rolled his eyes. I asked him about his book on the Harlem Regiment, and we talked for 20 minutes. Priorities. Weed scientist. Policing the use of aloha is not very aloha. Everyone is too hard on the R's. Everyone is too hard on the R's for the "Let's Go Brandon" thing. It's literally the funniest thing they have come up with since trickle-down economics. I like it. Animal Psyche was in a car accident recently and also on a job search. Speaking of needling to get rid of cars, job search apps don't truly allow you to narrow results in a small radius, finding a lot of companies nowhere nearby advertising under false locations. Very frustrating.
I am very thankful to not have to go through that process again because it is so gamed towards employers and against people trying to find a job.
Cape May Pete, I provide TA for New Jersey's lead program. Nomi is right about lead tasting sweet, and it's the dust from friction surfaces that's the issue. New Jersey just passed a law that requires lead safe certification for renters. New York doesn't have that. Wow. It's insane. Talk about the real estate lobby, right? I mean, that's just insane.
Yep. Well, or NYCHA. I mean, you don't even forget about the real estate lobby. That's just the federal government and the city. I mean, well, when the real estate lobby doesn't pay taxes, then you can't fund all these other services.
Jason San. Sam's taking the slow government approach to implementing good things. Dago Lefty. Sam, I hope there's amenities in your studio. I don't think your head will fit out the door anymore after that last caller. Sam, if it was a radio wave looking for lead, it wouldn't be sonar. It would be radar. Okay, radar, sonar. I'm sorry. Black Marxist. What do you think of so much of the left being pro-Rittenhouse?
I don't think there's...
Is it the left?
Like, yeah. Define the left.
Like, yeah, I find it hard to believe that there is a pro-Rittenhouse left.
I haven't seen it.
There may be people who are, who are marketing themselves in a certain way.
There's a lot of attention is gone now that was here during the Trump years and the election. And people who are expecting their channels to grow are kind of panicking and doing some crazy things.
I mean, I want to know who you're referring to.
I mean, I personally...
I'm referring widely to a lot of people.
I personally, it's always been my policy, and that's why I headline it, but just in terms of the status of the thing. I don't, once somebody gets arrested, because I think they should be arrested, I think from there, it no longer becomes a policy thing. It just becomes like some type of soap opera in my estimation. I don't follow the facts of the case in these situations. I broadly thinking, as a policy matter, it is not a good idea for us to allow 17-year-olds, or frankly, 27-year-olds, or 37-year-olds, or 47-year-olds to patrol the streets with weapons.
I'm not a pro-murder person.
I mean,
the bulletproof vest he got was from the actual police force. Why are they giving a 17-year-old or anybody who's not a police officer a bulletproof vest? Also, one murder in self-defense, but how is this even? Well, we know how.
The situation he put himself in to do something like that. We know why he brought it.
The only reason this is an instructive case is because of the judge, in my opinion, and the way the judge is responding to this.
That I find to be, pretty stunning. Yeah. But that's, but the broader point is like, I don't know what the legal technicalities are, or even the facts of the case beyond the fact that this kid showed up with a weapon patrolling the streets. It's just like, there's no, we should not have that. Yep. Judy Ruliani, sweet. I'm not the only high one then. Sometimes callers make a good show. Today is a good one. All right, 3 more. Jay Shavone. The Dick Morris story was recycled on HBO's Succession last week as the main character holds up his phone for his giggling personal assistant and says, "Here's what the president sounds like when he's angry."
Yeah.
You're offer
that
Kareem.
Was the week before.
Okay, you're offer Kareem free beer because he doesn't drink.
Yeah.
All right, what did I say? 2 more. Sam's greased up calves. Laura Ingraham is basically fanfic version of Carmela Soprano gone off the deep end, looking for a new grift to keep the cash flowing.
She's more fun. I would much rather watch Carmela Soprano.
Yeah.
Champagne comic using code words or phrases is only acceptable in very few contexts. For example, at work to warn coworkers that the boss is walking by. So to be able to put your phone away or make sure you look busy, I'm sure Emma and Lek have one for when Sam is coming in.
A camera for when you're coming in?
No, it's like a word like
code word.
Code
Bananas.
word. They hide the stuff.
I mean, we do.
We don't have that quite that layout of the office.
Also, Sam is usually the first one here and the last one to leave. Although with Peacock, I was the last one to leave.
That's true.
But no longer anymore.
And the final I am of the day. Let's see. Sorry, I lost that thing. Bullprog. If anything, Brandons across the country are feeling more encouraged lately.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you they poll tested that.
Yeah, good job, Brandon. Matt, Bradley, Emma, Nomi, great job today. See you guys tomorrow.
Thank you.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth